Hi, I'm Kristen from Upcycle My Stuff, and today we're going to make a cute and easy little scrappy patchwork owl. So I've made a few of these. I made quite a few of them at Christmas time for little kids. They're sort of soft, some softies, soft toys, plushies, whatever you want to call them. So it's a bit of applique, and otherwise it's really pretty straightforward. So I'll go through the materials you need. This is a great beginner project if you want to just make something cute and easy, but you've not done a lot of sewing. If you've watched the channel before, I started sewing about a year ago properly. I'd done a little hand sewing as a kid, but I've gotten super into quilting and crafting with scrap fabric. So this is just a little, I don't know if I would even call it a pattern, but it's a little project that I drew out the shapes. So they were cardboard templates, and then I've transferred them onto a PDF that you can print out so you can cut the shapes. But it was pretty easy to do. So if there's another kind of animal that you want to do and you can break it down into some rough shapes, just try transferring it to cardboard and follow some of the methods in this tutorial and you can probably do it. So I'll get on and show you the materials, and then I'll come back and talk to you at the end. So I've got a free printable sheet that's got all the shapes that you need for it. So there'll be a description in the description below. That's where the link will be. So there's a few shapes. Basically, you print out the piece of paper, full size, cut out the shapes, and then lay them down on any kind of cardboard. So this is like cardboard from my recycling. It was an Amazon box. So you can use anything like that. You could use a cereal box, whatever. So that's how you get the shapes. And then the other things you need are obviously we're going to use just regular fabric. So I'm using, basically it's like quilting cotton, but this is the kind that I basically used a bunch of my scraps and made a piece of fabric from. So I've got another video about that, but you don't have, I'll link to it above. But you don't have to do it like this. You can use one piece of fabric, or you could, if you're into sort of crumb quilting or anything like that, you want to make enough fabric to cover the shape. That's all you need. So it could even be, half of one and half of the other. You can get creative, do what you like. So I'm going to use mostly these kind of made fabric pieces, and then I might use a couple other scraps for the eyes and things like that. So I'm going to cut out my shapes and I'll show them to you, and then we'll get started sewing. Forgot to mention the other thing you're going to need is some heat and bond. So that's this stuff that's got this, I don't know if you can see it, this kind of sticky on one side and paper that you can draw on the other, and cut it out. And you don't need very much of it. And this is to fuse the smaller pieces onto the top pieces because we're going to applique on like the wings and the eyes and the beak and stuff. So you could pin it if you feel confident, but I use that. Okay. Cut out your shapes. You want to place the cardboard template on the wrong side of your fabric, and then use a pen to draw the outline, a friction pen ideally, and then use scissors to cut it out. And that's going to be the easiest, especially with all of these curves. Next, what we want to do is place our shapes on our heat and bond. Just try and arrange them so that you're wasting as little as possible, of course. And then we're going to trace around them with a pen. And you really do not have to be neat with this, because what we're actually going to do is cut inside those lines. So we're just trying to get the vague shape. So don't spend too long on that. Then you're just going to basically cut inside. So you don't want to be cutting on your line, you want to be cutting inside your line. You want the heat and bond just that little bit smaller than your shape, and it doesn't matter if it's exactly the right, the edge doesn't have to be exact circle. It just needs to fit inside the edges of your piece. And then you're going to place the sticky side down over the wrong side of the fabric, and press down on the paper side with the iron to fuse it down. So it only takes a couple seconds. Once you've done that, you're going to lay out your owl roughly how you want it to look on the pressing mat, and then you're going to peel off that paper backing, put that side down onto the owl, and then press with the iron. Now you can see my wings are a little bit off the edge. I don't know if that's because of I was quickly cutting my owl body or what, but don't worry about it. It looks fine whether it's right up the edge or it's not. It's better if it's overhanging more than less, because when you stitch around you can trim the edges, but if you're too short, then you won't catch the edge in the seam. So don't stress about that. I like to do the face all at once, so I will take all the sticky bits, or not the sticky bits, the paper bit off the back, and then place the face down and then iron that all down at once, just to make sure I've got everything where I want it, because you want it to look rough, you know, the eyes to look roughly spaced how they should. It looks a little bit crowded sometimes when you lay it out like this, but it does look cute. Next, we're going to use your sewing machine. I set it to a zigzag stitch, about 2-inch stitch length, and just go slowly around the curves, lifting the foot when I need to, and just repositioning it. So this is probably the easiest type of raw edge applique you can do. You could always try a blanket stitch. It does tend to be prettier, but it takes longer, and I thought the zigzag stitch would sort of coordinate with the zigzag stitch that I already had in my made fabric, and it's also quicker and easier, so that's why I went with that. And so you want to do the same thing with your zigzag stitch all the way around both eyes, the nose, and of course both of the wings. So once you've got that all stitched down, next we're going to add some cute little soft toy eyes. So I have a little kit from Amazon. It's got all sorts of different eyes and noses for soft toys, which helps to make even beginner projects look a little bit more polished. I'll put the link in the description box, but don't worry if you don't have a kit like this. You can just use some black buttons and sew them on by hand. That's perfectly fine, and he will still definitely look like an owl. But I do like these rounded eyes, and they're really easy to use. So I picked out 2 that I like the size of, and I've got my backing that goes to secure it. And next I have to decide where I'm going to put them. So I have made ones before where I put the eyes dead in the center, and that looks cute. But I think for this one I like them a little bit further down near the bottom. You could, of course, measure and make sure they're all in the right place, but I generally just eyeball it. I'm using a friction pen to just make a mark where I want the eye to go, and then try as best I can to match that up on the other side. So once I've got my marks, I'm going to use one of my favorite tools. It's an Owl, A-W-L. You use it for lots of different things in quilting and sewing, but it's really useful for putting in eyes like this. So it's a big sharp metal pointy thing basically, and you just stick it in where you've made that pen mark and push it in as far as you need to go to get your soft toy eye in. So I'm going to speed this up, I think, so that you can just see how the eyes get put in. It's really, really easy. You just push it through and then attach the backing. So I'll speed it up from here so you can see the rest of it, and then we'll head on to the next step. Next thing we're going to do is put the 2 owl pieces right side together and sew around the edge. You see I've got clips at the bottom, so we're going to leave a turning space. So you're not going to sew at the very bottom of the owl, so make sure to leave a gap, and that's to turn him inside out. You're likely going to have a bit of overhang, especially if you did your wings like me, so don't worry about that. We're just going to trim it all off once we've got them all sewn up. Once you've got it trimmed, then you're going to go around with scissors and just make little clips, especially where there's a curve, and that's just to help it sit properly when you turn it inside out. So just little notches, I think is what it's called. and then go ahead and turn your little guy inside out. Stick your finger in up the ear and get him turned around. And once I've done this, I usually go and get like a paintbrush or a chopstick, something that's got a pointy end but it isn't like sharp, so don't use your awl. Something, I think I used a paintbrush here, and just poke it in the corners to get those corners nice and sharp at the end. Once you've got them as stuffed as you can get them, you just want to pull that turning gap taut and then let the raw edges fold in, and then you just want to hand sew along the bottom to close them and finish them off. So that's it. One really simple owl. I think he's kind of cute. You know, he's not perfect by any means, but it's a nice little gift. He's clearly meant to be a scrappy, loved little patchwork guy. One little tip, because if you're using the made fabric like I was, because we're sort of scrunching and squishing the stuffing in, there might be places where the seam pops a little bit on one of your zigzaggy edges. If it does, just don't worry about it. Find a piece of thread that matches, so ideally the same thread that you used when you were making your made fabric, and just hand stitch it closed. You know, he's a scrappy little guy anyways. He's got all these seams all over him, and no one's going to notice another little bit just to close off something because you poked a bit too vigorously. So don't worry about that. And I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I'd love to see pictures of your owls if you make any. You can tag me on Instagram at UpcycleMyStuff, or just send me an email or comment below. If you like these kind of tutorials, then please follow, hit the bell for all the notifications and all that good stuff, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye.